This book is Cigarettes, Books and Cigarettes by George Orwell. It's a short essay. He did it around 1940. And in it, he compared in a very light-hearted way, if anyone's familiar with a modest proposal that Jonathan Swift wrote about, raising babies to eat them. It's that same sort of not really serious view. The interesting thing about it was it kicked me off thinking about smoking and CBAs. Now, the interesting thing is George Orwell, of course, died in 1950 of smoke-related instances, not surprisingly. He was about 4 years before the conclusive UK evidence came out that proved the link. We talked about causation, the causal link between smoking and a lot of illnesses back in 1945. This is a picture of him, or this is his statue in front of the BBC. If you're ever in London and you're a bit of an Orwell fan, you come and see it. And it's got that lovely quote. I think they covered it up when Donald Trump was visiting. But the other thing interesting about it was very controversial, because if you look at his hand, he actually is holding a cigarette, which was about it. But apparently, it's very hard to find a photo of George Orwell without a cigarette in his hand. So there's a reason for that. The other thing is it remains topical. We have the issue, as we'll come to, about vaping at the moment. We have illegal cigarettes. We have tax issues. The Auditor General did a review of a smoking advertising CBA that's on their website. There's at least a dozen other things. Oh, menthol. If you're a menthol smoker, you can't buy menthol anymore. That just came in middle of this year. So it still remains topical. Let's see. Oh, yeah, okay. So here's just a couple of quick slides. By the way, this is a slide again. They're going to go quick and fast, but that's just the way I like to roll. So at the moment, we've got about, go back a bit. I think we missed a slide. No, this is the history of smoking in Australia. So this is what I thought. There was a period when smoking was big. We've got a lot of bans, taxes, requirements, regulations, and smoking decreases. That's my view of what smoking was happening in Australia. This is where we are. This is a bit dated, it's 2022. About 1 in 7 men, 1 in 10 women, not very low rates of smoking among young people, and still a cause of death. If we look at somewhere else, New Zealand, still a bit the same, much higher rates of youth smoking, about the same rates of death. Okay, it's still a leading preventable cause of death in the world. We keep going, try somewhere else. It will be relevant, trust me, folks. Georgia, 50%, over half the people in Georgia smoke. Among 10 to 14-year-olds, 1 in 10. Much fewer women, much higher cause of death. So these are just some background stuff. The other one I will do for you, which is Papua New Guinea, up at our other border. Over 50% of men smoke, a quarter of women smoke, 30% of young people smoke, almost the same for women, and not a very high cause of death rate, possibly because people in New Guinea at the moment, for various reasons, find other things to die for, which comes in, but it's a non-trivial problem, let's put it that way. Now, this is something that someone provided for me, which they found this wonderful thing of, we're talking smoking here, this is an analysis of wastewater, and you can do clever things with wastewater. The red line is nicotine associated with cigarettes in wastewater, and the blue line is nicotine in wastewater overall. The gap, anyone got an idea what the gap is?
Vaping.
Vaping, wonderful. See, he called out, he looks good.
Thank you.
Okay. So this again, a colleague who we can talk about later helped with this, found this Roy Morgan research. So at the bottom line, we don't go too far. Total cigarettes and roll your own, declining. What's happening here for people over 18? Big uptake in vape, big uptake in illicit cigarettes. And we look at that one there and we see the same numbers again. Now looking 18 to 20, so a smaller section of that, because everyone knows people under 18 are not allowed to smoke, so there would be no smoking among or vaping among those people. Huge increase in vaping. I should have gone back, sorry. And it's very easy to do this, had a lot of statistics. This is 20% for those with trouble seeing. This one is 30%. So big difference. The scale changes, the whole thing. Everything else, big uptake in total nicotine, big uptake in vapes, big uptake in illicit, and some other fun stuff happening. That's not what we're going to talk about today, particularly. Oh, this now is my disclosure statement. Can anyone read that?
Okay.
Having trouble? Okay. We'll come back to this. I won't read it all, but I'll put it up I don't smoke. My family doesn't. I drink coffee. I drink beer. I drink wine. I drink tea. I like chocolate. Might seem unimportant. When I was a kid, I used to buy my parents' cigarettes at the corner shop. And once when I was on holiday in New Guinea, I bought some cigarettes because they were really funny, funky, fun ones. Only times I've ever bought cigarettes. I'm not paid for the work. I don't have anything to pro or anti-tobacco lobbies. I am an economist, not a health professional. I'm not an expert in disease. I'm not across the full long history of literature of smoking and addiction. I was a consultant in the 90s. This will be relevant later. I'm skeptical about claims of content. And then there's a whole lot of other things, which are my preconceptions about what's going on, you know. This is how I come to it. Now, this is different from a normal disclaimer, and we'll talk about it. It's very long, but it's probably telegraph the punchline. If you're seeing other people's biases, I think it's a good idea to identify your own. I'd like people's opinion later. Smoking. There is a very long history of smoking being proven to be sort of ground zero for false truth and alternative facts. Any one of these books will take you through a background where the major smoking companies, even when the evidence was quite strong, put out doubt, did odd and weird and wonderful things. So in this, I feel like my view that maybe smoking cigarette companies are not completely on the level has some support. But smoking has a background. It's not just weird. If you go back to Marshall's Principle of Economics, 1888, seminal textbook, one of the first ones for neoclassical economics, his example he chose to show about utility and monetarizing value was actually people preferring to smoke. So there is a long history of this, and we'll come back to some of this before, but there. Another great quote I love, Warren Buffett on cigarettes. I like the cigarette business because it costs a penny, it sells for $1, it's addictive, and there's fantastic brand loyalty. So I didn't put the thing here that this is not financial advice, and you should not take this, but that's it. However, this is quoted out of context. Warren Buffett did not invest in, apparently doesn't invest in cigarette companies directly. He's not comfortable with it. Now, this is one of the other triggers. So having got this interest, I stumbled across a report called Smoking Costs and Benefit in Australia that came out in 1994. As a professional courtesy, I'm not going to mention who the consultants who did it. That it's a long tortured history, but there are some links to some existing consultants, which doesn't need to be mentioned. I'll give you a tick, it was commissioned by the Tobacco Institute of Australia, and then the fine print, they are funded by the cigarette manufacturer, Philip Morris International. Okay, so what do we think happened? Independent analysis concludes the benefits from smoking are substantial. Smokers more than pay their way in the community. So that is another trigger for why I found this interesting to follow up on. So if we dig a bit deeper, and this slide, not my best slide, it is independent, but it does have a thing which I would call directly motivated reasoning. Some people think that you can pay consultants to say anything you want. I'm not necessarily of that thing. I think what you can do is find consultants who are happy to say the same things as you would like, which I think way back then is. But it made some valid points, that study, you know, about smoking costs compared to other things. It does use things like passive smoking in inverted commas and facts in inverted commas. It took the other most reputed study on the costs of smoking and arbitrarily assumed that half of those were correct. And it also accepted some tobacco industry views of the time. We'll come back to that. So-called addiction problem. Cigarettes are not addictive in the traditional scientific of the term addictive. I mean, it's not much. They also talked about ignorance, if the people aren't ignorant of the alleged health risks associated with smoking, even though they're saying the benefits aren't, they sort of had 50% each way. Therefore, they also quoted a seminal paper by Becker and Murphy about rational addiction, if you're in this area. So the big thing about it was, how could you come up with a net benefit to smokers? It was consumer surplus. 50% of the benefits they counted, after they discounted the health cost by half, were from consumer surplus. So I was going to do a consumer surplus slide here, but everyone knows what consumer surplus is. Anyone not know? Right, see me afterwards. But all right. Now, not only is that, this is a chance for CBA to make it to the big time. This is a cartoon done in 2014, a bit later, when the FDA went and said, in a cost-benefit analysis, FDA found that 70%, basically the consumer surplus was allowable. They did some things, they took somehow a discount of 30. So good old Mr. Butts, who is a Doonesbury cartoon character, he used almost a wash. So, you know, light up kids, you're only 30% sorry you didn't. So this debate around how to look at consumer surplus it actually is a literature, it is quite rich. I'm not going to go into it now, have fun. So now you've had Slido downstairs, okay? I haven't got the technology, so we're using a thing called Hando. If you would like to raise your hand to indicate your preference. So who thinks it's appropriate to put consumer surplus in a CBA on smoking? Hands up, please. Okay, I've got to count. Maybe you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Could you write that down, Peter? 13. He's not going to write. Someone, Paris, could you write 13? Okay, it's inappropriate to put things in. We have one. Sure, someone got to join him.
Got another one online.
Oh, got one online. Oh, sorry, everyone. My apologies to the people online. If you can do that, like I said, put your hand up online if you want to and wave to me, but we're probably not going to be able to count it. Okay, who finds it morally acceptable to include consumer surplus? Handouts, who are?
Acceptable.
Oh, sorry, morally unacceptable first. Unacceptable. Morally unacceptable to include it. We've got one. Okay, these are easy to count. Who finds it morally unacceptable to put consumer surplus?
Are they all mutually exclusive?
Ah, good question. Let's wait. Who finds it morally unacceptable to include consumer surplus in a smoking CBA? A lot of people are just in the fence and not going either way. That was not really working. Who finds that finding surprising? Anyone? That you could do a CBA for smoking and come up with a positive benefit. Anyone find that surprising? Put your hand up. Go on. Only 2 people. The rest of you just went, oh yeah, that's fine. I can see that. It doesn't work or doesn't. Okay. Who finds this to be appropriate? They're not mutually exclusive. Appropriate to put in a CBA, but morally unacceptable. That's me. Anyone else find this appropriate? We've got one other person joining me. Or possibly I sort of actually find it morally acceptable, but inappropriate for another reason. But it is again a great topic to talk about and look at things. Okay, I said there'd be more than one CBA. There is. This is a famous one if you're into it. This is the Czech smoking CBA scandal. It's a bit hard to read the whole thing, but I'll give it through. This is where there was a public apology by Philip Morris International in the Wall Street Journal in 2001, because someone had come up with a report that said, basically, before this, the Czech Prime Minister had said something, so I'll give you his take first. You know, by smoking, I contribute to the stability of the state budget. By buying cigarettes, I increase state revenues. I will die from lung cancer, so the state won't have to pay for my switch. That is the Czech Prime Minister talking before the study came out. So then the study came out, there was a big kerfuffle, and it turns out that Philip Morris made a public withdrawal in the Wall Street Journal saying no one really benefits from the serious and severe diseases caused by smoking. It's terrible smoke. So they backtracked from where they may have been in the previous world. The other thing on that, which is interesting, again, this is a US senator said, by including cost-benefit analysis of human lives in its calculation, Philip Morris has stepped well past the lines of decency, demonstrated once again it conducts business in a manner that is disconnected from right or wrong. Okay, so now you've tried Hando, you understand how it works, you use your arms, we will try it again. Okay, what is your reaction to pension and healthcare savings from dead smokers being treated as a benefit? Okay, anyone think that's appropriate for CBA? We've got, okay, great, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, sort of 10 and a half.
Count if it's a transfer?
What?
A transfer.
Well, hold on. No, it's not a transfer. Well, interesting. You're not paying it. It's the needs disappeared. The need to pay. Good question. Inappropriate CBA. Come on, if you haven't put your hand up, there's your chance. We've only got 1, 2, 3, 4 there. Okay. What about morally repugnant? Anyone on the? Yeah, we're getting a big run on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and morally acceptable. Anyone like it? Oh, we've got something right. This is great. We can have a fight. We'll put people on one side of the room. Don't raise this at drinks in my class. Okay, so and then of course, surprising. Anyone surprised by that? You're all economists. You've seen this sort of stuff. One person was surprised. People aren't surprised that this sort of thing happens. And then there could be other responses. Okay, so now this, Peter, I'm trying to be quick in talking. How are we going for time?
10 minutes.
Okay, sorry, I've got lots of stuff and I do apologise. All right, smokeless, who knows what this is? This looks like the page from sort of a public health thing. This is actually about join us in the FA Stop Smoking. You know, if anyone does want to make a donation, this is actually the Global Action to End Smoking, which is was funded, it used to be the Centre for as Foundation for Smoke-Free World, funded by Philip Morris. They've now gave a big donation, disassociated themselves from the foundation, and the foundation is using, or this is using that money. So again, nice pictures of doctors with stethoscopes. Again, this is actually the landing page for Philip Morris International's website. It's about progress to a smoke-free world. It's about 10 years smoke-free, progress to a smoke-free future. So that is where they're rolling at the moment. But then if you go into the 10 facts about Philip Morris, also it has 5 of the top 15 cigarette brands, including Marlboro. This is somewhat buried. It's not they've done one. And there are 774 billion units shipped. Some of those units, even though I couldn't tell, may be cigarettes. So they then have this thing, the best choice for a smoker is to quit tobacco altogether. I find that surprising. But better alternatives exist. Adult smokers who would otherwise continue smoking cigarettes. This is tobacco harm reduction. So now, having done the back, this is the bit we're going to play with, and this is where we were going to do a bit of IA play. I'll skip over this. Is nicotine dangerous? The bottom line is that it doesn't matter. It's not as dangerous as smoking cigarettes, or it's not benign. That's it. So is it not benign, not dangerous, not benign? There's some more. They do a comparison with sunshine cigarettes. When you go out unprotected in the sun, you're getting a risk of getting cancer on your skin. So you're freely taking risks. So smoking maybe, or vaping, you can also be freely taking risks. So however, this week's 17th Economist had this article saying, unfortunately shooting down that because there may be benefits of sunlight outweigh the risk for skin cancer. So unfortunately that is a bit awkward for that comparison they were making there. Similarly, on the flip side, this same edition of The Economist, or the week before, had a thing saying nicotine does do good things for you and help your performance. So there are pros and cons. Again, bottom line is, won't read the fine print, don't smoke. The logic of that works, hopefully it's in the next slide. Oh no, they also are quite aggrieved. They like the fact that people are stopping young people from smoking and non-smokers. However, they think you should have free choice. They're also disappointed that the Public Health Commission and community is not backing them in their smoke-free project. This is actually a slide straight from there. So it's a continuum of risk. And you will notice this, there is red here. So obviously it's bad. And then there's another thing here, which is green. And then there's a bit in the middle, which is you improve with less risk. These things, green usually means good. In this case, and this is the logic, less harm reduction, less bad. So I find as a sort of my inner designer finds this a curious use of colour in a slide to explain things. All right, here's the logic. Smoking, bad. Absolutely agree to Philip Morris website. Vapes, not so bad. So once a smoker plus cigarettes, which is nicotine, smoke and other things, is bad. And if you're a non-smoker or under 18, that's bad as well. If, however, you're a non-smoker under 18 and you use vapes, which is nicotine other, but not the smoke, that's bad. They actually say that, that's definitely there, no doubt about it. However, if you're a smoker and you have vapes and you have cigarettes, minus the smoke, that's not so bad. So this is the logic that's going to end up in our quick analysis of CBA. So who would this be in this big picture? These are people who smoke. These are current smokers. The only people at first Philip Morris is interested in. Somewhere in here are young people who we know don't smoke because they're not allowed to. For some reason, the number of smokers at the back end falls away. You can guess why. But there are a huge number. There are a huge number here of ex-smokers, which you might want to keep in mind. Okay, so this is another great thing. I'm sorry, they have such a. Don't look at YouTube. Don't Google cat videos. Go on the Philip Morris website when you're back and have some fun looking at some of this stuff. This is a conceptual model disease risk and time, smoking, goes up. But then if you hit this magic inflection point, it will stop. You go down here. But if you switch to smoke-free products, you go, now. So clearly, this is better than that. But as we'll talk, this bit here is not really discussed very much in our good friends. So rational addiction. Now I did a bit of a play with AI and put in this question, what is the optimal time to stop smoking? Because one of the things is, and if people are smoking here, I have no problem with people smoking. It's a personal choice. I do not have an objection to that. It's your call. One of the things that is surprising, if you do smoke and you stop, your health outcomes rapidly improve. So there is a thing like an optimal stopping problem. What time should I stop smoking? I threw that into AI. I said, what would happen if you had a 7% discount rate? It says, ideally, you'd stop before you were 35. And then it went, however, the discount rate is not appropriate because this is, it's no amount way could you offset this risk. Then I did it again with a 5% discount rate under the Treasury guidelines of the Value Statistical Life for Australia. AI then gave me 30 years. My discount rate sounds good, but also said nothing about not using this discount rate. It was quite happy. It didn't give you the caution that a discount rate is not appropriate for something like that. Okay, so another thing I did was I got the Philip Morris website, discussed this and stuck it and said, have a look at Treasury's checklist for CBA. What will it give me? And it actually went through the position. This is took as long as I'm talking to do. The position, its finding, and a rating. So it got 2 partials, lots of fails. This is just the website position put in there. So if you had a proper CBA and tried to do this, you might do better. This is the summary. It failed 39, partial 31, meet standard 0. But it talks about things that are missing, the reference group, alternatives, evidence, equity analysis, sensitivity testing, recommends that have independent review. This was Claude, it just spat this stuff out. So yes, it's not the total thing you'd ever want to know about this, but it gives you so much, so quickly, so richly, and in very little time. Why am I caring about this? I mentioned I gave a presentation at that same conference, or the one the year before, I can't remember. This paper was presented, Potential Impacts of E-cigarettes on Life. It's exactly what we're talking about. It came up with the conclusion that giving people in Georgia vapes would produce health benefits because they would have better life outcomes. Hard to dispute, because if you stop smoking, take vapes, you're probably going to do better. Is it the best option? Maybe not. Anyway, the thing that's great about this thing is over here, this is the funding. So here's the source, no conflict of interest. Funding is from Foundation for a Smoke-Free World, the person we talked about before. So this is, again, an interesting question about this. Look, this is, I ran that through Claude. It went and gave me some conclusions. We don't need to do that. Look, again, we don't need to go through all this year. You're probably going to be across it. But the burden of proof, interesting, with the CBA, or if you would do a CBA based on, Philip Morris would go from quit to shift. So it's really about shifting, not quitting. The base case. Another quick one, I think I'm almost done. Anyone aware of the New Zealand policy where they were going to stop people? It's called an age thing. So if you were born after a certain date in 2009, you would never be able to buy cigarettes or any nicotine project. So it's like an 18-year-old, but rather than rolling, it stops. So that came out in 2 years ago. And as announced, it's very interesting. Last time I did this was live. Then what happened was, it got a big announcement, and then it was squashed less than a year later. The reason for it being given was because it would undermine tax revenue. So this is interesting because I then put that through AI and said, all right, have a look at Philip Morris's website, look at their position. Is this logically consistent with the New Zealand ban? And as you could probably guess, the answer was yes. There's a logical inconsistency between their stated view on, and they don't actually officially, I should say, they haven't officially come out against that ban. They never supported it. But if you believed everything on Philip Morris' website, you would be really happy to have a ban on intergenerational because it fits with their non-smokers, people 18 should never smoke. That's a very logical plan. And it actually went and pushed that out. Yep, on principle, they should be right. On actual harm reduction and commercial use, they won't. So there's a tension there. Again, I didn't write these. These were produced by AI and spat this out, which has one quite good analysis, and it's got a bit of a moral dimension to it. So just so I'm not showing my biases, here's another report. tobacco industry messaging around harm, framing from BAT and PLA, that's British American Tobacco, and that's Philip Morris International. So it's looking at that. That report came out, lovely. Their funding was from Stopping Tobacco Organisation, but they still said there was no conflict of interest. So personally, it goes both ways. I think we could do a lot better with disclaimers on what's going on. Again, this is a lot of directly motivated reasoning. If you go into something with preconceived ideas, you're not going to be very good. I think on the final slide. Oh, if you want to, I also played with ChatGPT. It floods the zone. You get masses of stuff. You get huge. Being able to do your prompt architecture engineering right is very important. Hopefully, it's the last slide. Oh no, we went one too far. There's a conclusion. I hope there are conclusions somewhere. No, there are some observations. There are no conclusions, observations. So questionable smoking CBAs live on. They are around. Directional motivating thinking rules. People find it very hard to do a CBA or anything where they're preconceived. AI thinks quickly, cheaply, and has plausible outputs where they're good. AI is not value free. That's another one. Good disclaimers matter. I don't know if everyone's going to write one as long as mine in a report, but you can also put things on your website and refer to it. I think that would be a nicer way to let people know where you come from. CBA helps AI evidence being followed. So when we do run these things through an AI, it will spit that stuff out for you. You can't stop bias. You can be alert. You can be able to mitigate it. And believe it or not, AI can help you with that. That is hopefully done. So thank you. Any questions?
Yes, a great deal to question there, I think. Who'd like to make a question or comment?
No questions are fine as well. Okay, go.
Come in, start front and then go second one is.
Jason, New South Wales Treasury.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert. I really enjoyed that.
Glad you did, Jason.
I once jokingly told a friend that the sugar and chocolate would kill him sooner than smoking, and he promptly stopped eating chocolate and picked up smoking. And
Good slide.
the reason why I bring that up is when we're looking at imperfect substitutes within a CBA lens, there needs to be an understanding of the relative utility that each option offers. Is there any literature that investigates just how warm and fuzzy a vape offers you or a shisha offers you? Would you use that? I guess identify what the least worst for that given.
Quite possible. Like I said, there is a whole literature about that. There is another thing also, which I haven't gone into, which is the assumption of rational choice. And that if you're addicted to something that you didn't necessarily know you were going to be addicted to when you first started it, is it rational choice? If I'm addicted to something, am I making rational choices? If a lot of the value I get in smoking is the fact I don't get withdrawal symptoms, is that a rational choice? It's somewhat problematic, and it would be great. I'm sure if I was a research institute, I'd help fund that study. Any quick other one?
I was going to ask something very similar. I was like, yeah, do you know off the top of your head what the consumer surplus from a cigarette is?
No, it was in that. Okay, we're actually probably maxing out consumer surplus in cigarettes because I asked at Woolies only the other day, $40 a pack, $2 a cigarette. I don't buy them. What we're seeing now is people are switching to buying illegal cigarettes. So clearly we are maxing out the consumer surplus because people are going, I'd rather risk buying something from a dodgy bloke in the back alley than go to Woolies. So, and despite all the other things it's done, like, packaging and health advertising, getting rid of menthol, people are still, so there is no doubt there is a big consumer surplus. Oh, yeah.
Sounds good.
No, unfortunately, big apology. I need help with another presentation in another room. More than happy to talk to anyone afterwards about this. If you offer me a smoke, I'll politely decline.
Just one quick question on tobacco CBAs. At the end of the day, the benefit of quitting is, if you quit in your 30s, you get an extra 10 years of life. If you quit in your 50s, 3 years of life. The benefit of that quantified is usually so large relative to everything else. Everything else is, we can chat about it, but it's pretty much irrelevant.
Well, the funny part is this the inner economist. I couldn't help look at it when I said that, when I saw the fall off in health risk, there is possibly a trade-off to be made there on a cost-benefit analysis, and assuming, of course, you can stop, but it's an addictive product. So there's another problem there. But logically, if there is a optimal stopping problem,